Happy Wednesday. I am officially back. I was sick for 2 weeks. Had the flu, I think. Turned into a sinus infection. It wasn't fun. So I apologize for not being with you the last 2 weeks, but we have an incredible guest today. I am so excited to have her on. Her name is Jillian Turecki. I'm sure a lot of you people follow her, and if not, she is an incredible worth following. Let's get her on right now. Questions, and if you guys have questions for her, please jump in as well. But she is a certified relationship coach. She is a teacher and a writer. Her courses, her workshops, her coaching inspire me greatly. Jillian, thank you so much for jumping on. Hi.
Hi. How are you? So nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too, and thank you for making the time and really for a lot of the work that you do. You've taught me so much about relationships, not just personal and professional relationships, but the relationship with myself. You really do such a good job of eloquently describing sort of what's going on for all of us as we kind of are becoming more awakened and more conscious. I think you're seeing that. I certainly feel like I am on social media. And I wanted to just get right into it.
Okay.
Because I had a guest on not that long ago called The Conscious Mommy. She works with parents and talks about kids and that sort of thing. And one of the things that she suggests is in order for you to show up better for your children or for others, you must show up better for yourself. Mm-hmm. Is that really like what all of this is about, right? In order to kind of what you talk about, have a better relationship with someone else, you really need to kind of hone in on relationship to self. And if so, where do you start with that?
Yeah, so yes, it absolutely. But it shouldn't be confused with selfishness, right? Because we can get very, we could get very self-centered. It's easy to get that way in a relationship when we get nervous or we get scared or we get insecure. So working on oneself shouldn't be confused with self-centeredness. I think that the reality is that we have to always make sure that we are taking care of our emotional and physical well-being. Because when we do that, we show up better for the person who we're in a relationship with. The relationship with ourselves, the way that we have to tend to it is we all have a pattern that we practice unconsciously when we're triggered. And so much of our work, sorry, there's a little background noise, so much of our work is being able to communicate effectively, to not go into our default patterns when we are feeling triggered, and to really behave as much as we can like an adult in a relationship. And so in order to do that, we do have to tend to ourselves. We do have to have, we have to be self-reflective. Mm-hmm. We have to be self-reflective. We have to be accountable. We have to make sure that we are filling our own cups, that we are not letting stress take over our lives, that we're not being a martyr, that we're actually getting the rest and the exercise and the connection that we all need in order to feel our best selves. And that is really the working on self. We're in a relationship because we tend to do that really well when we're single. And then we think, and this is not necessarily a conscious thought, but we think, oh, now that I'm in the relationship, I don't have to do all those things.
I'm already here, right?
Yes.
I got what I wanted. Yeah.
I fulfilled this goal of being in a relationship, when really that's when we have to do that even more, is when we're inside of a relationship. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. That's it.
But I appreciate that. And for people tuning in, it is such a great guidepost to follow, because you're right. We become complacent. We don't take care of ourselves. We become lazy. We blame the other person. It's their issue, rather than like what you said. We become less accountable or we should become more accountable. And you said a really interesting thing recently too, which is most relationships don't tend to break up because of a lack of love. They break up because of a lack of connection.
Yes.
And so much of me just wants to go, well, how do you repair the connection? But it's not just about repairing the connection. It's about sort of committing to yourself, to understanding where the breakdown may have started, may have happened, because we always want to be so quick to just project and blame. It's this person's fault. I'm perfect. Exactly. Or I'm guilt-free of this, but it's not. It's two people. Where do you fall with that?
Yeah. So definitely, and this is what I covered just in my most recent podcast episode. I dive right into this. It is really rare that we would break up with someone, or that people break up because they don't love each other anymore. We don't love the person anymore. And that's actually part of why it's so heartbreaking, is that, and it's so disorienting and it's so confusing, is because we do love this person, but we don't feel like we can make it work. And so when we don't feel that connected to someone, we don't feel as motivated or as passionate to show up fully in the relationship. So part of our task in being someone in partnership is to make maintaining the connection a priority. And that when there is a loss of connection, to jump on that and be really clear about how to repair it. So the things that lead to a loss of connection is stress, or rather, because stress is a part of life. I mean, you're not living if you don't have stress. Like problems and stress are a part of life, but it's how we respond to the demands of our lives that determines how resilient we are in the face of stress. And so we have to really make sure stress, that it could be work stress that we're not dealing with. It could be parental stress that we're not dealing with. Any kind of stress, we have to put practices in place so that we're not constantly our stressed out selves in the relationship, because that really kills passion. And so it's really about, there's other things that cause a loss of connection. One is also just the habit of becoming too comfortable with each other. And that's really paradoxical, because you want to be really comfortable with the person who you're in a relationship with, but you don't want to be so comfortable that you feel like you can do whatever, say whatever, act whatever, and they'll just never leave you. Because that's not true. Everyone actually has a threshold. So these two things in particular, which is like how we deal with stress and how we taking each other for granted, are the things that cause a loss of connection. And so really the rebuilding of the connection is deciding, I'm not the priority and you're not the priority, but our relationship is the priority. And so we both have to do whatever is necessary that we have to do to make our relationship back on track again, whether that means date night, whether that means we have to go to therapy together, whether that means one person needs to go hire a coach or do whatever they have to do, or maybe they have to start communicating better. And so restoring connection could literally just, here's the thing. The things that we did in the beginning of a relationship, we tend not to do a year in, 5 years in, 10 years in. And yet those things that we did in the beginning of the relationship and the energy that we brought to the beginning of a relationship, we have to remember to bring that in. Like, we have to remember that the person who we are in a relationship with is a gift, not a given. And people you use the word complacent, and that is a really accurate way to describe the state that people get into. They become sort of complacent and they think that the relationship should just coast. And look, sometimes the relationship does need to coast a little bit because there's other things going on in that person's life. But honestly, you really want to keep depositing into the emotional bank account of the relationship consistently.
Yeah.
And that's the name of the game.
That's powerful. Yeah. And someone just wrote it. A relationship is a gift, not a given. And, you know, not to throw my mom under the bus, but, you know, she married, my father passed away, but I would notice she would treat my dad a little different than if you were with a group of people. And sometimes I think about that, you know, why are you going to be harder on your partner, but be so nice to, and I think that's actually quite common. Yeah. If people are wondering like how to manage the relationship is am I treating my partner more harsh than I would in a circle of strangers? And by the way, I'm sure we all do it and it's quite normal. But
or just ignoring your partner, bringing all your charm and your A game to strangers.
Right.
And then you come home and you just sort of bring your leftovers, so to speak.
Totally. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And again, I think it goes back to find the partner that's willing to invest in self. And I really didn't start doing self-work until I was cut at the knees. I lost a lot of family in a short amount of time. And in order for me to cope through that trauma, I had to go into so much therapy. I mean, I have done a lot of work. And honestly, I would not want to have had all this loss, but it was quite eye-opening. It was truly profound to learn a lot of the things I was avoiding. And I have avoidant as an attachment, I think. I tend to avoid, or my trauma response becomes freeze, paralysis, and I like fawn and I tighten up. But those are all things I would have never have invested in and learned about myself had I not had a lot of really shitty things happen to me recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's you just really described what it means to rewrite your story so that you become the hero or the heroine of your story. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, what really transitions a person from feeling like a victim of their story into feeling more triumphant is to learn the lessons and to actually put certain systems in place so that one can heal and change the way that they see things. So that's wonderful.
And you offer a lot of beautiful insights in the journals that you provide on your website, or your workbooks. I would highly, highly, highly recommend investing in that if you're looking to just learn a little bit more about yourself, especially if you haven't had so much loss yet. It's so compelling to be able to ask those questions, the silver lining of the pain that you have experienced in the past, whether you were rejected by a work opportunity or an ex-girlfriend, boyfriend, so on and so forth. I know we're going to be short on time. I did want to get in a couple more questions because one of the things that I'm learning about myself, which I try to be as open on my platform as possible, is I'm a sports broadcaster and I spent my whole life trying to achieve and succeed. And I lost a brother at a young age, and I realized I was trying to kind of succeed my mom's pain away. When I was young, I was trying to achieve so that she wouldn't be so sad. Which, by the way, is bullshit. Like that, you can't do that. In my head, I thought you could. What are you seeing in the world now in terms of relationships when it comes to the masculine and the feminine roles? Because I realize now I was so much overcompensating into my masculine that I just wanted people, and definitely my mom, to see that I was super successful.
This is a really big topic. And it's a tough one because I think that so many so-called experts are, talking about this masculine and feminine energy. And what's unfortunate is that so many people are then taking the information and they're not really quite understanding. I would say that if you really wanted to delve deep into the energy, like understanding masculine and feminine energy, the person to learn from is David Deida. So that is the person he's the scholar on this, last name Deida. So get his books. Some of his books that he's written for men are just profound, and they've helped so many of my male clients, but they also help a lot of women. So I'm hesitant to really talk about the subject of masculine and feminine energy, because I think that it's extremely nuanced. But here's the truth. For anyone, male or female, if you're driven to just achieve, to make someone else happy, instead of driven to achieve because you actually want to, in addition to that, give back, contribute to the world, you're not going to have any fulfillment. So it's going to cause a tremendous, that striving for success in order to be good enough, as opposed to striving for success because you feel driven by a deeper purpose, is going to turn any woman or a man into a stressed out mess. Now, when it comes to the more nuance of what I believe that you're asking about, is like for women, most women, they're actually dying to be in a relationship where they don't have to wear the hat that they wear at work. They don't actually want to do that. You know, like, I'm a teacher. I consider myself a teacher and a guide and a mentor, but that is absolutely not my interest in a relationship. That's not what I want at all. No. I don't want to be some man's mentor or teacher at all. So that's out of the question. So I think that what's happening now is that, but women then, they're not able to, women are really most happy when they are able to have a deeper sense of purpose, but also be able to relax and be fun and be soft and to be free and to not be so rigid and controlling. And so I think that for the high achieving women out there, which is very much becoming the modern woman, she has to learn how to not be so rigid and so controlling. And that's really for all women, whether they're high achievers or not. And yes, if she is attracted to the masculine, yes, she's going to want a masculine presence, man, to come into her life who will make her feel more relaxed. But she's got to do the work too, to step into that, because then she's never actually going to choose well. So does that make sense? So it's really, really important for everyone to, if you're very motivated by achievement for the sake of achievement, that's never going to lead to fulfillment. You have to have a deeper purpose. But for women in general, and I say this, let's shelve the feminine and masculine right now. Let's talk about women. Okay. We have a very particular hormonal system that is incredibly impacted by stress in a way that the male hormone system is not. And so if we are totally stressed out, that's going to impact our menstrual cycle. That could impact our fertility. That could create so many problems. That's why so many women go into burnout. And what are women supposed to do when they go into burnout? They're supposed to relax. If they're having trouble conceiving and there's nothing that the doctor can find is a real problem, They have to relax. They have to get out of fight or flight. Maybe if they have to gain a little bit of weight, if they're underweight. So it really just behooves women to know how to relax. It's very important.
Yeah.
And that is actually also really important in relationships, because whoever you are, if you're attracted to women, I would almost guarantee that you're not attracted to her when she's like being a badass out in the world. You enjoy that, you can admire that, but it's really when she is relaxed and happy and in the moment that is usually when her partner is most drawn to her. So
wow.
I will just leave it at that.
Yeah. Relaxed and happy and present, which requires women to do the work to figure out what that actually looks like in her flow state, what that energy is, because you're absolutely right. I think we don't really know we need to be that way until we have these kinds of guides that come into our world, and you've been one of them for me, which, like I said, you really helped translate. Like, in order for you to find a healthy partner, you must first, you talk about this and I'm paraphrasing here, but you must first hope to find peace, because in order to find the right healthy partner, you're not in a place of stress and chaos and all of that. And I thought that was really, informative. It was really interesting. And so people like you who have such a skill at, again, eloquently writing in these snippets, and her Instagram is really, really beautiful. It's amazing, because we're at a time where we're in like awareness health. I know I don't know all the things, but I know the issues that have come to put me here to this day, but sometimes I still get triggered by my trauma response, and I don't know how to get out of that. So having these kinds of conversations help, and following really healthy people. If I'm going to use social media, at least I'm being inundated with psychology and philosophy.
Yes, exactly. Well, one thing that really helps with overcoming these triggers is, and it's a balance, right? This is a balance. But, we're so conditioned these days to call everything trauma and to call everything a trauma response. No, not everything is actually a trauma response. Some of it is just your conditioning. This is what you learned from your parents, or this is what you learned in your past relationship. And we are all called to mature, right? We all, no one wants to date a child. They want to date someone who can connect to their childlike energies, that's fun and adventurous and free, but no one wants to date a child. So we can't, it's a fine line when you're thinking, when you're trying to understand your own psychology, not to always be like, oh, this is my, okay, you can say, okay, this is actually a trauma response, but also some things are not really just a trauma response. They're you being afraid, going into a pattern. And that's very, very important, because when we identify too much with the trauma, then whatever we identify strongly to, we are tethered to. But if we can say that this is just a pattern, and it's not necessarily a trauma response, necessarily, okay? I put that very strongly. Then we can say, oh, this is a pattern. I can break this pattern by taking a deep breath. I can break this pattern by just it's just being more mature in a relationship, right? It's about not constantly creating meanings like, oh, they're trying to do this to me, they're trying to do that to me. Like, when we get in our heads and we're creating stories, that's a bad habit that everyone has. It's not a trauma response. So I think that that's really important. And then another thing, one thing that I just really want to mention, because you said so many important things and it got my brain moving. When we kind of quote unquote do the work, it's important that you realize that then your standards should go up. If you've done the work, your standards should go up. But if you're saying to yourself, I really want a conscious man, or I really want a conscious woman, I really want a conscious person, what does that even mean? You have to define what that actually means to you. Because the person who is in therapy and knows their attachment style is not necessarily conscious. So you really have to define what that means for you. Mm-hmm. And then you have to step up and be that as well.
Beautiful. Yeah. Fascinating. So true. And we're getting into where it's very trendy to be, oh, I'm doing the work.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we're at a place where people are open to discussing that. Yes. And it's not such a stigma to go to therapy anymore, but you're absolutely right. It's not. And you talk about that on your Instagram, which is makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate that. I know I need to let you go really quickly though. What are things that you do for self-care? Like what does Jillian do that are like non-negotiables during the day where you prioritize you? Because you're always taking care of everybody.
I know.
You know, you work in a field where your energy goes to a lot of external people who may need you. How do you replenish yourself?
Thank you for that question. So non-negotiably, I move my body pretty much every day. I mean, I'll take some days of rest, but I'll do something, even if it's a long walk. I mean, I've been a yoga practitioner for almost 25 years. So that's very, very important to me. So I practice a lot of yoga. I'll do other forms of exercise, but yoga is predominant. So I always move my body. That's very, very important. I also listen to something. I listen to different things. Anything that inspires me, I listen to every day. So I'm always making sure that I am doing something with my physiology, that I'm listening to something inspiring every day. I have a dog, so I take long walks. My long walks are like my long meditations. I also do meditate. So those are like the three non-negotiable things that I do pretty much every day.
I love that. What are you listening to that inspires you?
Oh, that's good. I listen to a lot of it really just depends what it is that I actually need. Tony Robbins inspires me greatly. David Goggins also really, I feel like I like to listen to him when I need like a good like kick in the butt. And I sometimes listen to certain affirmations like Louise Hay and something like that. But sometimes what really inspires me is just listening to someone who I think is just very smart on a particular topic. And I love to learn. It's literally my favorite thing ever. So, so whether it's listening to something or reading something just anything that's going to make me feel inspired, to make me feel stronger, to get me out of any victim mode, because this is very, very important. It is normal and really easy to feel like a victim, and I'm not talking about being a victim of abuse or a victim of something extenuating circumstance. We walk around and it's easy to feel very wounded and very victimized. So I make it a point every single day to read something, to listen to something, to jolt me out of that, because I don't want to be the victim of my story. And I don't want anyone else to. And we have to work hard. We have to be very, very committed and very, very diligent about not falling back into victim mode. And this is something that's not just, I don't think, discussed enough, but I think it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. There's two ways of looking at everything, right?
Yes.
You can choose to look at it as the victim, or you can choose to look at it as an opportunity for growth. And one of the best podcasts is your own. So I highly recommend people take a listen to Jillian's podcast. We'll link it as well. But thank you. You've been so generous with your time. We went over, and I find your work to be so centering, so grounding, so inspiring. And you're helping a ton of people with just your own ability to be so transparent. And I think we want that. I'm just trying to gravitate towards more authenticity, more honesty. And you give all of us a lot of permission to sort of be that way. So
thank you. I really appreciate those words, and I'm very grateful to be here. So I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Jillian. Thank you, everybody. All right. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
everyone.
Bye, guys. See ya.
Bye.